Hello, welcome back. Video 2. Obviously going to be refining the form prior to texture. We're going to be using a mixture of techniques, but I do want to just show you something. On the previous video, when I examined the mesh, just on the snout, there was a horrible collision of what looked like triangles, but they weren't, and I knew they'd give me issues. So I jumped back over to 3D Coat and re-edited the snout. Obviously I had to re-UV, but we actually got a nicer spread of islands second time round. We did a better job of the body. I then reprojected the details as I did in the previous video. Now it's time to jump in and start refining wrinkles, bulges, muscles, folds. You have to try and double guess what's coming. It's just instinctive at the moment for me, this. And if you're new to Zbrush and sculpting, I hope this helps inspire. Anyway, we're going to go over to one of those floaty time lapses. If you look here, I'm just building up all the little bulges and perceived veins under the skin. Lots of folds on the chest. You think this is more raptor, which is bigger than a velociraptor, but it'd still be incredibly agile. If you notice there, I just went in with a poly paint and drew some very vague lines where I think the flow of the musculature should be. Just a little trick. It's up there with, if this was a real clay sculpture, I'd go in with a carving tool and just etch out lines before I went in and detailed. So I'm using a mixture of a carve brush, which you'll find in the folders within Zbrush, Dam Standard, Inflate, and just the traditional clay sculpting brushes. I swear I never move away from about 4 or 5 brushes. If anything, I just change up the alphas just to give a little bit of interest to the surface while I'm working. Because real clay is never completely smooth when you sculpt. I actually find it useful to have a noisy alpha on the clay build-up brush, just to show you where you've actually worked. I'm beginning to regret doing this floaty, whizzy round, rendered undo thing. But it is kind of targeted on the areas I'm working. It's just refining the forms, targeting and just inflate and sculpt and get some definition on the folds of the fingers, of the skin of the fingers. Making sure we've got knuckle deformation, things like that. And it is a deviation for me to actually do this Jurassic Park style texture. I actually recognise the sculpting technique they've used on the animatronic models, where they've literally carved in lots of random spontaneous shapes rather than scales. And I'm actually drawn to the Jurassic Park 3 velociraptors more than the Jurassic Kingdom ones. I just think by the third film they really got the design down. Anyway, like I say, just prepping the shapes for further texturing. Here we are back with a normal view. I reckon I spent about 2 hours on that stage, just carving these random shapes and wrinkles and folds. It's incredibly thick skin, so if it's flexible, thick skin, as the creature gets older, you're inevitably get deep wrinkles that stay there. Okay. So, what I want to do is, using the inflate brush, just go in and emphasize these carved details. Use all the tricks you've got. It's still in quite a rough state, this, at the moment, but the inflate brush is an incredible tool. You can get some accidentally clever results. Okay. I made this tileable alpha. It is almost just like spontaneous shapes that we can etch into the skin. You can drag it on the surface, or you could go through Noisemaker because it's tileable. But let's just tweak the alpha, modify, just change the mid-range. It was given a bit of a bulge then. Okay, it's a bit soft. So again, you can tweak the contrast of the alpha. Completely different effect. And this technique is great for blocking out larger areas of the body. Again, where your eye isn't actually focused. I said in a previous video, your eye is drawn to the face, no matter what it is, a troll, goblin, dragon, anything. So in a production environment, if you need to get something done efficiently, you can get away with doing alphas for this kind of work. Right, I just step back down. You can see some deformation, some noise on the back of the neck. That can be a result of the inflate, so it's worth just knocking it back slightly, or you might get an issue when you project to make your normal maps. Okay, so it's just randomizing the way you drag. As you drag, sort of move your pen around and just rotate the alpha. Here's a nice trick. Mask. Jump over to Noisemaker. Let's see what the alpha does here. Right. Play with the scale and the strength until it appears. A little bit stronger. Apply to mesh. With that soft transition of the masked area, you don't get any overlap, especially on an alpha with a shape like this. So I'm selectively going through and just cherry picking areas that we can use with the Noisemaker plugin. Now that was stretched, this is the UV selected. Let's have a look, get the scaling right. We can make these scale patterns and these wrinkles smaller than the ones on the body. And work your way across the model. I do switch between perspective mode on and off a lot. I mean, with X symmetry, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect it. It's just visually, it's nice to see it flat and isometric now and again. So again, we can establish that kind of texture onto the body. Apply to mesh. Do the same with the tail. Just turn down the strength slightly there. Okay, examine where we can do a bit more. Back of the feet, nice and leathery. Underside of the feet, see what we get. We can go in there with some alphas later to really enhance the look of those really rough feet. I never really have a plan when I do this stage either. I just wing it, keep it fluid. If you plan what you're doing too much, it looks like you've planned it. And organic creatures are spontaneous and they should look that way. Okay, so this last part of this video is just examining the model, looking have we done this basic first pass of textures. I'm happy with that. There will be multiple passes again of just refining this, but In the next video I want to show you a few tricks I've got for doing the head. You could do it with the alphas, but I'll show you another way. I'll see you in the next video.